Hello to everyone. A very warm welcome to the Froebel Trust's biennial conference, in which we showcase some of the research and researchers we're currently supporting. My name is Mark Neal and I'm the chair of the Froebel Trust. We are joined by colleagues and Froebelians from around the world today. Wherever you are and whatever time it is, you are very, very welcome. I've seen several colleagues joining us from Australia and New Zealand, where it will, I guess, be late in the evening. We used to hold this conference at the University of Roehampton with an audience of a few hundred. Now we are truly a global community and delighted to welcome everyone to the conference. That globalization of Froebelianism is very much reflective too of our research. The Trust now supports research and researchers in universities around the world, and that research is capturing an ever widening range of themes focused on the early years of education and Froebelian practice. I think that range is really well illustrated by the programme for today's conference, homing in on nurture and connection, and then on challenge. And the Froebel Trust is here to fund research which challenges. So I, for one, am hugely looking forward to hearing from all our presenters today. And with that, I'm going to introduce you to the first of our panel chairs, Sandra L. Gamayel, who was herself supported in her research by the Froebel Trust. Sandra, over to you.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks very much. And hello, everyone. It's great to be here. And welcome to the first of two sessions that are taking place this morning. The theme of this session is Connect and Nurture. And it will focus on how we can reconnect with families and communities in our schools and settings as we emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic, and how we can make sure every child and their family is listened to, valued, and welcomed. So this session will be split into three 20-minute presentations, and after that there will be time for questions and answers. So please do leave any questions you might have in the Q&A function. Not in the chat, in the Q&A function. Thank you very much. So I'm going to start by presenting our first presenters, Emma Short and Helen Adams. Helen and Emma have been head teachers for over 15 years and have been leaders in Cornwall Early Years Teaching School. They lead Camborne Nursery School and Truro Nursery School, the only two maintained nursery schools in Cornwall, and they have worked collaboratively for many years. Over the past 3 years, they've been reflecting with the help of the Froebel Trust on their curriculum and pedagogy. And in April 2022, they received funding from the Froebel Trust to develop a research project, which I think we'll be hearing about now, to build parental engagement and develop relationships with parents and carers following the pandemic. So Helen and Emma, over to you.
Thank you very much. I'll just share my screen.
Hello, everybody, and welcome.
Yeah, welcome, everybody. And it's really lovely to be able to share the project that we've started. We haven't yet finished it, but we're partway through it. So we thought we'd just give you an update so far of where we are. So both the nursery schools engaged in the project, which was following the pandemic. But first of all, we're just going to tell you a little bit about ourselves.
So my name's Emma Short and I'm head teacher at Camborne Nursery School, and you can see this is the amazing maintained nursery school that we have in Camborne. Camborne is in one of the poorest areas in the country, and that's hard to believe in Cornwall, but there are real pockets of deprivation. So to have this oasis of green gardens, lots of planting opportunities, is really helpful for our families and children. In terms of the nursery itself, we take 2-, 3- and 4-year-olds, and we have a 50% SEN register of needs. So 50% of our children have either speech and language or other SEN needs. And out of those, we've got now have 12 children who have got an EHC plan or will have an EHC plan by the time they leave school. At the moment, we can have up to 64 children on site, and our number on roll is about 80. It's just going up because we've got new children starting. But that's a rough snapshot of what our nursery is.
So then Truro Nursery School is about half an hour drive away from Camborne, and we're in the city. But you can also see that, you know, we've got very lovely leafy green environments. And we serve slightly different community families. We have lots more working families being in the city. We do have quite a mix, and we tend to have a bit more ethnic diversity than in Camborne. We also have high levels of SEN, and that's really because the nursery schools are recognised as supporting SEN really well, and there's very little other provision in Cornwall for SEN, complex SEN. So that's us really. And so the rationale behind our project was, you know, during the pandemic, we found it really alien because we'd been so used to families coming in, being very much part of the nursery, engaging, you know, just bringing their children in, talking to us every morning, and all those sort of things. And then obviously when the pandemic hit, it became completely different, and parents were literally, you know, distancing themselves from us. We were doing the same. They were, you know, they were sort of handing the children through the door.
And I think, Helen, we were both pretty similar, weren't we? We were open throughout the pandemic, and we had some parents come who were key workers, or some children who attended who were very vulnerable. But there was also some parents who didn't want to come to nursery. They didn't want to leave their home. So it was about how, what we really wanted to do some research on is about how we can engage to all those different types of parents. So the ones that have been working throughout and not had time with their children, and those who had spent a lot of time with their children but maybe didn't know how to support their learning and development during that time and had found it a real struggle. So yeah, we were really excited to be able to do something together.
Yeah, we were. And we sort of talked to lots of parents, and we found that some of the youngest children in the families were often sidelined because, you know, the parents were having to do homeschooling with the older children. So the younger children were very much left to their own devices. So we felt this would be a really good opportunity to kind of research how we could re-engage parents. And we also found that in both schools that once the restrictions were lifted, we still found lots of parents very cautious about bringing their children.
And one of the things during the pandemic, I mean, we both provided activities and prompts and stories and videos and even resources for parents to use at home. But I remember one of our parents, we'd put some lovely nursery rhymes and action songs on the website, and they hadn't got internet at home. She hadn't got enough data. So it made me realise that that sort of face-to-face with us, supporting them, doing fun activities, interesting, engaging activities was probably going to really help these families.
Yeah, definitely. So that was the rationale. It was sort of post-pandemic, getting back to not necessarily where we were before, because I think the whole world had changed and there were some things that actually we wanted to take forwards. But it was very much trying to re-engage parents and also influence the home learning environment. So here you can see what our aims were really, was to, you know, use those Froebelian principles with families so that we were, you know, getting them to understand what they were all about, to try and support those relationships, and certainly language development, which we both noticed had been, you know, significantly in decline. To help with the home learning environment, bearing in mind that often those children have been sidelined in favour of the older children needing to do their home learning, to increase confidence and also increase, you know, our confidence in exploring, you know, children's levels of wellbeing and involvement. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute.
And I think it's important to say that we, as well, in terms of Froebelian principles, are on a learning curve ourselves, aren't we?
Yes.
So we've been working closely with Stella and Felicity, having some training over the past 3 years now, isn't it?
Yes, we've been working through the units, and yeah, we've been really enjoying it, haven't we?
Yes. So we really wanted to share this with families and have this as a sort of core principles for both our nursery schools.
So the things we needed to consider really in planning it was, you know, how confident would our staff be and who would be a good person to actually run the project? You know, did we have enough knowledge? And that's why we sort of did it alongside our training. How we would engage families. We talked with Jan Georgeson at Plymouth University quite a lot about that, about the best ways to do that. We wondered whether to target specific families or just allow everyone to take part, and that was a lot of discussion around that. We wondered about how effective it would be with large numbers or smaller numbers. Would there be too small a group, that kind of thing, and then various other things really. And then the way we decided we would measure impact was in a variety of ways really, through kind of journals, through observation, photographs, but also using the Leuven scales to look at engagement.
And lots of feedback from the parents, lots of feedback from the staff who were delivering the sessions. And what we did a lot of reflection at the beginning before the project started, trying to think of all the scenarios. But a lot of it as well was, you have to think this was going through that first stage, wasn't it, when we came back to nursery? And what we hadn't thought about was the confidence of the staff so much. And I think that is a really important thing to do, because the children and the families, their lives had turned upside down, but also the way of working in the nursery had changed dramatically, hadn't it?
Yeah,
so
completely.
That face-to-face engagement with parents was quite, it was a new thing again, wasn't it?
It was.
So the staff confidence was one of those. And also the capacity within the nurseries, because we'd still got high levels of illness going around, COVID coming back all the time. So just having that capacity to do it. So that's where the grant helped, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And during lockdown, when we were still open, you know, we had to make quite a lot of modifications to both nurseries, didn't we? You know, splitting the garden into 3 spaces, or, you know, decking out each room so that, you know, the children have access to a wide range of activities. So it was very much at that transition time of everything was changing back. And I don't know, I'm sure other people feel the same way, but we felt that there was a lot of uneasiness amongst families, amongst staff, and it took quite a long time really to get people to feel quite confident and settled again. So then, thinking about what we actually did, we identified Dr. Jan Georgeson from Plymouth University, who helped us with the research side of things, and, you know, making sure that what we were doing was ethical and you know, the best way of collecting that data really. And
I'm always surprised when we work with Jan, because we have worked with her before on some research projects. It's just the really simple things of how to do a survey with parents, and whether you're doing a questionnaire or whether you're just doing a quick button survey, how that impacts on the research process and collecting data. And so it's really important, I think, to get somebody who knows more than we do about that.
Definitely. And it was wording as well, wasn't it?
Yes.
We sort of put some wording together that we thought we would generally ask parents or carers or families. But then sort of Jan came back and said, oh, I think that's a bit ambiguous, and you know, perhaps we could word it like this. So she was really helpful in kind of really structuring, wasn't she? Restructuring the programme to help us with that. And then as time's gone on, we've met with Jan periodically just to kind of touch base, and we definitely have found, as I said at the beginning, we're not at the end of the project yet, but we've definitely found that coming back together partway through has enabled us to kind of just reflect on things, and certainly things have gone in a slightly different way.
Yes.
To what we perceived at the beginning. So little things have happened that have been out of our control that we've worked with, and we've talked to Jan about, and we've kind of worked with to just you know, think, okay, well, let's go down this route now.
So prior to delivery, we did lots of planning, but we decided on sessions that we would do with small groups of families, maybe up to 4 or 5, wasn't it, at a time. And the sessions would last for maybe an hour and a half. There'd be 2 members of staff. And we looked at one of the core principles that we use in the nursery is outdoors, food, block play, clay, and we wanted to link them in with Froebelian principles. So the staff also made some handouts to support the parents following the sessions, We looked at how to recruit parents, running the sessions, and we reflected a lot.
We did reflect a lot.
And we've learned some lessons.
Yeah, and we also tried to provide parents in each session with something to take home, not just a handout, but actually something physical, didn't we? So, for example, you know, it could have been paintbrushes, where we actually sent them home with something that they'd explored in the session, so they could practice that at home, carry on at home. So, you know, we obviously had to do lots of planning. We had to get some momentum going with the staff, you know, raising those enthusiasm levels and excitement, bearing in mind that we were just post-pandemic and, you know, everyone was feeling quite low, and we had to, you know, understand that, you know, different people had experienced different things from the pandemic. So, you know, it was, you know, getting all that moving again. This was what we came up with Jan as a survey. And what was really interesting about this, and I know from doing surveys with parents before, this is quite common, is that we wanted to do it at the start, and then we repeated it at the end on the same sheet, so they could see what they'd written at the beginning. And it was really fascinating that at the beginning, most of the parents felt that they were definitely at the right end of the scale, you know, up there with quite confident, and which is a little bit disheartening, because you think, oh, what value can we add? But actually, when they reflected then at the end, or, you know, as we are so far, they then realised that actually they had learned a lot from it. But I suppose it's one of those things that you don't really know what you don't know.
You can feel confident at playing with your child outside, but then you can learn different ways.
Things. Yeah. So that was what we did, and we obviously then got consent so that we could share with you today, for example. So this is really just a flavour. We thought this is the interesting bit for you now, really, because this is just a flavour. You listen to us talking. This is just a flavour, really, of with photographs of what it looked like in practice, really. So as you can see, you know, we set things up so that it was quite simple for parents to read, you know, the aims of the session. We'd planned it, and we had the planning there. We tried to make it look really appealing and attractive for the children and for the parents. We had the handouts, very much open-ended activity for the children to explore.
And I think the key for us is we've done parent sessions before where they've just come in and played alongside their children during the session. But this was the room, there was space for the children and the parents.
Dedicated
so just
space,
just 4 or 5 parents and their children, maybe siblings, and 1 or 2 support staff with them. And it made it into that, I think it helped build that connection, didn't it?
Definitely, without a doubt. And, you know, we had a real mixture of parents. We really thought, are we going to get those sort of middle class parents that really want to just, you know, come and have a lovely afternoon with their children? And actually, it wasn't like that. We had some grandparents. We had some families that we would consider as, you know, more vulnerable, that we support quite a lot. So we were really pleased that we had that really good mixture of families coming in. And then we recorded our sessions. We just chose to record our session in a big floor book. So we put our planning in there, we put the staff reflections in there. And the way we work with floor books in our nursery is that children are very much involved, and obviously they're on the floor. You can see there in the photograph, the children are just getting in there, adding their own mark making to it, recording their thoughts from it, and the parents were doing the same. So it was a really joint learning activity. It wasn't very, you know, it wasn't sort of the parents coming along having a lovely time and then the adult writing up later. It was very much joint, which I think was quite critical, really, to that parent learning. So you can just see there, I just love that picture, because, you know, there's the mum with the beautiful nails that's not quite so beautiful anymore.
I like these pictures where you've got the younger siblings coming along, and so it's a real family experience, and it's saying that when you're outside mixing potions, it's okay for your, you know, baby to have a go as well, and smell and feel and touch. And I just think it's a great family learning opportunity.
So
yes, here we are making some potions at Camborne, and I think later on Helen talks a little bit about the awe and the wonder, but you can see it on their faces that they're just loving that chance to explore with one special person. you know, with their mum or their dad or grandparent, like you say.
And it's a little out of focus, that one, but a really lovely, you know, that lovely kind of what I made. And the concentration as well. And this is where we decided to use the learning scales. So we use those as a measure really of you know, the children's interests and their
levels of involvement
throughout the project. And you can see it from the photographs too. You know, we were able, so that was part of our research was you know, to what extent we would be able to measure those levels of involvement and engagement. So this was the block play day, which again, you know, lovely for parents to learn about, you know, the blocks and how, you know, the unit blocks relates to the other blocks, which, you know, all the parents had never really thought about before. We did, you know, obviously with some food as well.
There was a lot of feedback from the food sessions, because it was just allowing children to explore and experiment with food, cut, taste, and a lot of parents, I think, found that really helpful.
So it's just giving you a flavour, but I think, you know, as well, lovely to see parents really just getting down and messy with their children, which was lovely. And this was, they were making instruments to paint with from different things in the garden. So impact so far, we are keeping an eye on the time. Impact so far, as I say, this is just a little capture from one of the floor books, and which they're not, you know, they're not beautifully presented. It wasn't loads of extra work. We just did it as we were going along. And, you know, there's a caption there, you know, admiring the beauty of nature, the rough and the smooth textures, from a little boy who discovers this tiny snail in this massive tree. And then capturing lots of the impact with photographs and the children using different equipment. And then I'll just let you read these reflections from a member of staff, who was leading it, who just, this was her reflection after some of the sessions. Lovely, isn't it?
Yeah. I like that shared connection as well.
Yeah. And then this is you know, capturing a little bit of feedback from families as well, which we really was lovely to see that actually they were taking the activities home.
Yeah.
And practicing things at home straight away. What would be interesting is to kind of go back to those first cohort of families now, perhaps, and see how sustainable it had been, and if they're still doing some of those activities, or perhaps if they're doing it with siblings.
Yeah.
So you can see there, you know, they found new ways of learning and exciting things to do at home, how the engagement levels were good. And then this is obviously from a mum here. Just thought I'd let you know, as soon as we got home today, Patrick was straight outside looking at all the leaves and flowers, a picture of him telling me about the purple leaf. So parents were really good at sending things back in from home as well. And then another one, actually this one's about Patrick as well, is helping me to make dinner last night. He's decided he was going to make a potion, and then they didn't have any food colouring, so they used turmeric, and, you know, copied and add paprika to his potion. So, you know, really lovely transference into home. And there's some photographs there of the children doing some of those things at home. So what's next for us, really? We have 1 minute left, I think. Sustaining that impact. So obviously working with really small groups isn't really sustainable going forward, because it is really, you know, cost heavy. But there are lots of things I think we can carry on with, and that is that giving that information to families with the handouts and things like that. Having open sessions, still they'll be bigger, but having open sessions for children to come in, parents to come in with their children with that Froebelian focus, and carrying on our journey of discovering knowledge and passion for Froebel, and continuing with our training. Yeah. And that's just an example of one of the handouts we gave. And I think we're having questions later. So that's just about us.
So if anybody would like to come and visit us in Cornwall, you're welcome to come and see our nursery schools, and we'd look forward to that.
Yes.
Thanks for having us today.
Thank you both. That was great. Very interesting. And yeah, there will be questions at the end, so we look forward to hearing more then. So I will move on now to present our second set of presenters, Sarah Porter and Nadia Bryaj. Sarah is head teacher of an East London maintained nursery school. She's always been passionate about learning outdoors, and studying for the Froebel certificate in education allowed her to reflect more deeply on outdoor learning. A recent Froebel Trust grant enabled Sarah and her colleague to plan and launch a Saturday Forest School for vulnerable children and children with special needs. Nadia leads the inclusion team at Cairo Nursery School in London. She's a trained forest school leader. A Froebel Trust grant has supported her work with children with special educational needs and their parents and carers. The project helps children to learn about the local environment and highlights the value of outdoor play. So Sarah and Nadia, they lead a maintained nursery school in Newham. They will be telling the story about how their school garden has helped children reconnect with nature and the wider school community after the pandemic lockdowns. So Sarah and Nadia, the floor is yours.
Hi everyone, can you see us? Yeah. Good morning everyone. Hope everyone can see us okay and see our screen. Okay.
Yes, we can see.
Hi Sarah, we can
Great,
see
thank
you.
Yeah, okay, just checking. All right, it was really lovely to hear from our colleagues in Cornwall, and there were so many similarities we were discussing, weren't we, as we listened, because we're also a maintained nursery school. We're quite different because we're in a very urban area of East London, but so many of our experiences were similar. And I'm going to start with talking a little bit about how this project emerged. In the same way, very similar, it was after COVID. And one of the things that we were also open throughout COVID, we also have a really high number of children with SEND, don't we? We have a lot of children with autism, and we also have children with complex needs. And we stayed open for vulnerable children and for key worker children. We did have quite a lot of vulnerable children access our provision, but it was a real effort to get children to come in, and they came in for a bit, they were off. But one of the things we became really aware of was that children were experiencing lockdown in very different ways. And we could see some of our children whose parents were maybe working at home, they had gardens they could explore, some of them had gone to stay with grandparents, they got to go away and stay, the beach or the countryside. And some of our other children did not go anywhere. The parks were closed, parents were too anxious, maybe they had vulnerabilities. So children were literally sometimes shut inside small rooms with curtains drawn quite often. We had one child who had rickets after the pandemic. And it was becoming starker and starker the more we spoke to parents. So just a little bit of background as well to our awareness of Froebel. So we had two practitioners in our school, myself and Rabia, who trained as Froebel practitioners last year. And we had a real interest particularly in engaging with nature, and also in unity, connectedness and autonomous learners, but particularly engaging with nature really sort of, for us, kind of linked in with this awareness that children were not getting outside. And one of the other things we were aware of when we started to emerge from the pandemic and children came back is that some children were accessing sort of private forest school provisions that were local, and they were getting that on Saturdays and in the week. And again, some of our other children who had not been out much, parents were still so anxious about going out. And something that I've become really aware of is the habit of taking your child out to playgrounds, out to local areas has dropped away quite a lot with some of our families. So we wanted to increase our forest school provision in school, and we also thought, let's try and do a Saturday project, and let's really target families who have been adversely affected by COVID, vulnerable families and families of children with SEND. And one of the things we wanted to do, we wanted to give them waterproof clothing so that they could keep those at the end of the sessions and they would go out. Yeah. We wanted to take do sessions in school, but we wanted them to go out to see what we've got. Although we're an urban area, we've got some lovely woodland nearby. Certain sessions, we wanted to give them some gardening packs, we wanted them to be able to grow stuff at home, and we wanted to open up our garden on the weekend. Yeah, we've got a lovely garden. It's not quite as lovely as our colleagues in Cornwall, yeah, but it's a real green oasis in the middle of an urban area, and it's not used at the weekends, which always seems really sad. We wanted to open it up and to encourage families to come.
So we're going to talk about the forest school philosophy and what we believe is our approach here. So for us autonomous learners, so the staff here are facilitated in forest school, and we follow children's interests. So we scaffold children's learning, and we plan our session according to their interest, and we as well we ask the children what they want to do during the sessions all the time at the end of one session, so we involve them in our planning, and we involve as well the parents when they come on Saturday. So it's nice to have a shared experience together and what are the interests and what they want to do next. So the children are using the senses to explore and be engaged with nature as well. Sorry, because they need to have like regular sessions. So that's why when we're doing our forest school, we have at least 5 sessions regularly, and we come every week. And on Saturdays, we did 6 sessions as well. So they had regular sessions to come on, and not just one-off visit, because they would not get anything from it. Yeah, and then our projects was to build, to concentrate around building warming, responsive, trusting relationship, as Helen Chavez described it, and between children, parents, educators, and the wider community. So yeah, so what's the impact of the project will be? So we said that parents will grow in confidence and feel more confident to take the children out. So a lot of parents, when they share, they share that they've never been outside with some children, they've never been to a forest, or never been to a park. So that's why we want to do this. So they're always talking about their own experience, parents, when they were back home, but when we're doing sessions here, they've never done it with their children. So it was nice to have that experience with their children as well, and interaction together. And our outdoor Saturday session, we specifically targets vulnerable families and children with SEN as well. And it was nice to see parents taking them outside, because they were really wary of engaging them or taking them out. They were really afraid or worried of what would happen to them. So it does support them. Yeah.
We found, didn't we, that so many of our parents are quite isolated.
Yes, definitely.
They may be not always been in this country a long time. Family might be somewhere else, and they really COVID just really affected this as well. Sometimes they just don't know anybody else, do they?
No, nothing.
So
it was nice when we did the session with different families. We could see interaction between them already, and even when we finished the sessions with them, we could see they carry on this interaction and meeting outside with the children and things. So it was lovely to see.
It was really good.
Yeah, so forest school is including everyone, so that's one of my strong things. So I would like to involve everybody in our forest school project, and children with SEND and vulnerable families, even because they have restricted contact and families don't take them out. So mostly they were staying indoors with a screen and not doing anything really.
And we were also quite aware that lots of forest school publicity quite often shows men. There's not always a lot of people from an ethnic minority background, and when we read up on this, that wasn't just our perception. This seems to be quite accurate, and we really wanted our forest school to encourage our families to come out and so that they could see role models with our staff. So here's our staff, picture of our lovely forest school team. And this was some of the funding helped us to train our 2 more leaders. So our staff are all women, which we think is great. And they're all from a minority background. And they speak lots of different languages, which has also really helped our project, because it means we can engage lots of different parts of our community.
So we said how to include everyone. So we adapted session to the children's ability. So we're offering choices to the children. We're using visuals or objects of reference to support them with their understanding when we're having sessions. We support them with another member of staff to help with transitions. So we can have another staff if they need it or if they're one-to-one. We support families by modeling, like Sarah was saying, and we explain always the importance of outdoor play. And we're giving the opportunity for vulnerable children to access more for school sessions, so 5 sessions during nursery and more 6 sessions on Saturdays with parents. So we have some challenges, but we're trying to overcome this barrier as well. So children with SEN can be overwhelmed, and because change of routine is a big thing for them. And we can have challenges with the outdoor environment, so we need to adapt ourselves. So sometimes the pathway can be muddy, so we need to have a special buggy to take them as well. We have some children that can be sensitive to touch and can dysregulate it when coming into contact with mud or other wet textures. And of course, the weather is a big issue as well with parents, because we never want to take the children if it's cold or if it's raining as well.
But Nadia is the sort of person who doesn't let barriers stop her. So we all our children, whatever their needs, get to go to the forest.
Definitely.
Nadia's going to take through some of our case studies. This is how we measured impact really.
So this is child G. So child G, when he started nursery, was a really shy child, not really playing with others, and he has speech delay as well. So it was
no English to do.
No English at all.
Newly arrived,
So it was really withdrawn and was not really engaging with anything. And even if his physical development was not there as well. So we took him to, the first time that we took him to the forest or walking there, he was actually really, really tired. And I could see that just walking long distance was really an issue with him. And when we came back, he was sleeping and walking at the same time. So you can see that he was really tired. So slowly, we built it, his self-esteem and confidence. He's starting to join other children, and he's starting to climb trees and join others. Having a member of staff that spoke the same language helped him a lot as well. So he started to be confident to engage and think. And when we started the Saturday sessions, he was really confident to show how to use tools with his mom. He was so proud of himself that he could do things. So even the fire, when we do campfire, he was helping me to light the fire. So he was showing all his knowledge and skills to his mom. So really proud.
It's lovely.
Yeah. And child V, so little girl, so she was really as well, again, she coming from, she has speech and language delay as well, but she was having as well difficulty to touch different textures, and being dirty or wet was a big issue with her, so she would cry forever. So when we started sessions with her, she refused to be outside, she just wanted to be indoor, and she was crying for a long time. That was our first session. But slowly, she started to gain confidence, joining others. Mom was really good because she tried everything, and she brought the brother along as well. And she's starting to touch slowly some texture. So mud was not an issue after the last session, and playing in the mud kitchen, she loved it. She was doing a lot of mixture and climbing trees. She never done that before. And it was like, wow, she's jumping and things. So it was a lot of improvement.
And that translated into her climbing confidence in nursery as well, didn't it? With climbing equipment.
Yeah, and as well, she moved to another school, and actually the transition was really good. She was confident to move to the another school, which it took forever here to settle. So yeah, lovely confidence. She grew, and she was being exploring different textures. So lovely to see. We have child L. So child L was not wary of safety. So she the first time that we did a campfire and cooking sessions in the nursery, she came straight to the fire. You could see that we have to stop her and have somebody to support her. As the session gone along, Dad was really worried in the first session, because he said he's putting her in buggy, never lets her go because she's not aware of road safety. So he was really scared that something would happen. But when we took her, I could see that actually she was understanding the rule when you give us clear instruction, and she's starting to use the tools, climbing. And when at the end of the session, she was following all the safety rules, safety, and she was listening to adults when they give her clear instructions.
It's really good.
And the last one is child M, which you're going to have a feedback of parents later. Child A is going to be soon assessed with autism, and the first time that he comes, it was really hard to settle, and he was having a lot of tension, really hard to transit from one area to another. So the first session, he was of course having a meltdown, didn't like it at all, doesn't like to touch anything. The parents were really great because they insisted coming every week, and he changed his routine. But it was lovely to see they engaged with other children at the end of the session, starting to touch texture they would never have done after. Now, when you see me having my trolley or putting my coats to go out, he would be really coming to me. And he said, Forest, I want to go Forest. So it's lovely to see how he changed and how he's joining with others now.
So, and one of the other things we did was lots of Saturday gardening sessions and sending home some seeds, and you can see there's some feedback. So it didn't matter. We made sure that we sent things that people could put on their balconies or their windowsills, because we knew that a lot of families didn't have gardens. We've made lots of dual language videos. I'm not going to play it to you because I know we're short of time, but just to show you, we did really short videos. This one is in Bengali and English, just to really promote outdoor play and explain the benefits, but something you could watch on your phone in 2 or 3 minutes. And that was watched much more than anything long and things we sent out that weren't read. So we found that was quite an effective way of promoting outdoor play. And I know we're getting short of time, so I think this might be, we might end with this. Yeah. This is some parents' feedback. The parents of child M, who brought their older siblings sometimes as well. Unfortunately, child M wasn't very well when they made this video, so he was asleep. But I'm going to leave you to watch this.
Thank you.
Hi, just making this video to thank K-Roll Nursery for organising the Forest School in the summer. It was really beneficial. We had a great time. It's mainly for our 4-year-old, but we also took our elder daughters, Mariam here, 7, and Khadija, 8.
Say hello, girls.
Say hello. Hi. I'd like to thank the team. What are the names?
Shafina, Nadia, Anissa. They were very helpful. Our 4-year-old has got additional needs, and we found that it was perfect for him. Normally weekends come on, we've got the older kids as well as Marvin Mustafa, who's 4 years old, and always wondering on where to take him because of the age difference. But really helped with his sensory needs. A lot of nature involved. They had a swing that helps relaxes them, climbing a lot of trees. And how did you girls find the trips?
I like it because it's like camping.
It's like camping, yeah, that's right.
What did you enjoy doing?
I like the experience. I like the swing.
You like the swings?
I like the hammock, and I like to climb on the trees because I could see from past.
Would you like to go again?
Yeah.
We'll go again in the summer.
Definitely.
Again,
the girls would definitely look forward to going, didn't you? And the ladies from the nursery were super organised, always carried a massive backpack with all the needs.
I think there was a hammock, swing, some sort of tent. There was a tent as well, wasn't there?
And we climbed trees.
We climbed trees.
Safe ones.
Had a nice walk as well to the Monster Flats.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely something beneficial for children, any age group.
Even for adults, really.
Yeah,
really.
It's just getting out there, really, isn't it? Something different.
Anyway, thanks a lot, and we hope to join you in Forest School again in the summer.
Bye.
Bye.
Just to say as well, we really want to carry our project on. We have really struggled because of funding and finding more funding. So we haven't been able to do it up till we are going to do it in the summertime, whether we have to just pay for it ourselves or not. but because we think it's so valuable. But we are continually looking for more funding as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you both. We will now move on to the last presentation of this session. Our last two speakers are Fengling Tang and Judith Ish-Horowitz. So Judith co-founded Apples and Honey Nightingale. It's the UK's first daycare and preschool co-located within a care home with a carefully designed daily program of mutually beneficial intergenerational engagements. In 2022, she opened the AHN Education and Training Center and recently launched the first NCFE accredited customized suite of intergenerational qualifications. Judith tutors on the International Certificate in Intergenerational Practice course. And in 2010, she was awarded an MBE for services of early years education. Fengling is a senior lecturer in early childhood studies at the School of Education, Froebel College, University of Roehampton, where she teaches on the BA and MA Early Childhood Studies courses, on Froebel Professional Certificate in Early Childhood, and supervises MA and PhD students. She is co-convener for the BIRA Early Childhood Education and Care Special Interest Group, and she is a member of the Early Childhood Studies Degree Network, Policy, Lobbying and Advocacy Strategy Group. So Judith and Fengling will be exploring what role nurturing young children's spiritual development could play in our recovery from the effects of the global pandemic.
Thank you. And colleagues already presented their wonderful work. So Judith and I today, I'm going to discuss with you nurturing young children's spirituality, blending a Froebelian approach into intergenerational engagement. So the first part, I will be sort of read both writing and also Froebelian scholars' thoughts on key Froebelian principles, and also in relation to the Froebelian perspectives on spirituality. And Judith will tell us about what they do in relation to putting key Froebelian principles into practice through the intergenerational engagements. So I don't know if you see the slide here. I cannot do the slide soon. Yeah, but let us start with this key quote from Froebel's Pedagogics of the Kindergarten. Froebel's thinking around humanity is highlighted in the powerful slogan here. He aimed to arouse people's awareness of the importance of living with children as part of fostering family life, life of the nation and humanity. Froebel's longing for united German nation is reflected in his thinking here, as well as in the Universal German Educational Institute he set up in 1816 to unite and renew the spirit of the imaginary German nation. And then we start with the key Froebelian principle, unity, connectedness, and community here, as already said by Helen, Emma, Sarah, and Nadia. But I'm just to reread with you together from Froebel's work here. So unity as a sophisticated aspect in Froebel's thinking is really very much considered as the central pillar underpinning his philosophy. So we can see here Froebel's notion of the divine, earthly, humanity, nature, diversity, individuality, as well as dimensions of time, present, past, and future, all integral parts of the concept of unity. Contemporary Froebelian scholars further illustrated here about Froebel's concept of unity, addressing the interconnectedness of everything is connected in the universe. It's about the whole child, about the holistic way of children's learning. And Bruce argues interconnectivity as an important feature of Froebelian philosophy and education by seeing the child in connections with her inner life, community people, and a wider world and universe. Yeah, we start spirituality by connecting the Froebelian perspective or the Froebelian lens. So for me, it's very hard to find comprehensive explanation of spirituality or children's spiritual development in a focused way in Froebel's writing. But we start here for us to think about Froebel's view of education, drawing on his education by development, one of the key works he published. Froebel addressed the important role of education in providing nourishment to cultivate children's feelings, emotions, physical, sensorial, and spiritual domains of development as the germinating point and source of genuine development of the child. So this nourishment has been greatly considered by Froebelians and Froebelian researchers as the ultimate importance of children's engagement with nature. The significance of play was addressed by Froebel in his Education of Man. Yeah, play at this time is not trivial. It is highly serious and of deep significance. Froebel highlighted play as the highest phase of child development, play as the purest, most spiritual activity of man at this stage, and the importance of play contributing to the child's and other people's welfare. And Bruce further observes that Froebel moved away from a set curriculum and became very much interested in the process of the child's play. And Froebel saw play as a mediator between the natural and the spiritual, between the emotional and intellectual. Play is a unifying mechanism, and play is the most spiritual activity of the child. Okay, Froebel's Mother Songs is a collection of about 50 nursery rhymes, songs, finger plays, and games developed by Froebel in the 1840s. They were very valuable resources for families, communities, and kindergartens to work with young children. As Bowen quoted here, the role of mother songs is very important in cultivating children's morality by exercising organs of the mind. Powell and colleagues argue mother songs acted as a pedagogical tool and an emotional conduit for children and parents to understand their place, role, and purpose in the world and connectedness to their surroundings and divine creator. Bruce considers mother songs as a moral framework to guide families and educators in bringing up children toward the symbolic life through music, sounds, dance, movement. Dyke addresses sounds and music activities as a cultural tool to bring people together, to convey values, to cultivate courage, and as a very powerful way for children to engage, understand, and participate in community and culture religious events. So Judith is going to tell us more what we do.
Thank you, Froebel. So as you can see, COVID struck and most educational settings had to close. And we couldn't actually stay open initially because we were based in a care home where the residents were particularly vulnerable. So for the first 2 months until June 2020, we had to actually close our doors. And it was then that the full impact of the relationships that we had been nurturing with our intergenerational programs became clear. These emotional ties, nurtured by our spiritual connections, gave us the strength to support each other during these difficult times. It was actually the parents of the children who took the lead and said how much their children were missing their grandfriends and were worrying about them. And they decided to make a video, which you can see actually on our website, from each child in their own home, dancing and waving at their grandfriends. And we were able to include some footage of the residents waving back. This video was shared with the residents' relatives who had been forbidden to visit their home. And you can imagine the sense of relief they must have felt knowing that their loved ones still had contact with the outside world and were not forgotten and had this special bond with the children that had been nurtured since we had opened. You can see in this slide now, when we first were able to come together in June 2020, socially distanced, safely, and we would meet in the garden, still together. This is the beginning of our We Can Still Be Together project. And you can just see our beekeeper. He was actually the gardener who'd been trained specially to look after, to support us, and had got special children's sized beekeeper outfits as well. The children are dancing and singing for our grandfriends. Together, either outside or separated by glass or via Zoom, we researched the lives of bees, coiled clay beehives, extracted honey, and gave it as gifts to each other, to wish each other a sweet new year. We made beeswax candles for the winter Jewish festival of Hanukkah. The cyclical framework of the Jewish calendar gave the children a sense of security, knowing where they are in time and space, and stimulated memory and purpose for our grandfriends. So let me tell you a bit about Apples and Honey Nightingale. It's a partnership, it's inclusive. In 1991, I opened Apples and Honey Nursery, and you will have noticed that the name has connotations with the Jewish New Year, because it's traditional in the Jewish New Year to dip apples in honey for a sweet new year, and that's how it got its name. Nightingale, because the care home with which we are partnered is called Nightingale House. And so that's how Apples and Honey Nightingale got its name. But when I first opened Apples and Honey in 1991, it was important to me that children in my care should have a holistic education. It wasn't just skills and developmentally based, but it included living and learning with all age generations. Many of our children lived far from their extended families because their parents had had to relocate for work or they lived abroad. So we developed a connection with a local care home, which we visited, initially only occasionally for more performance activities, but then gradually these visits increased until one day, looking at the relationships that were being developed between the children and the residents, and the fact that actually some of our children were adopting residents, many of whom had had no family because they'd been growing up during the time when they would have found their life partners in the Second World War, and so many people had been killed. They were being adopted by the families, and they themselves were adopted the children. I just thought, why are we only visiting occasionally? Really, we should be doing this every day. And so I approached the home and asked if we could actually open a care home on site where we could have daily, mutually beneficial, purposeful, intergenerational relationships. And so whilst the home was Jewish care home, and our nursery is a Jewish faith-based care-based setting, it is open to everyone. We enjoy all faiths and cultures. And in fact, on Friday, one of our children dressed up in her Japanese girl's outfit because just to celebrate the Japanese Festival of Girls. And so moving towards, can we go back to the previous slide, please, Fingling? Thank you. Our ethos, which is bringing generations together. We have a culture of mutual respects. Grandfriends have time to listen and share and are non-judgmental. Children learn to wait. Coping with delayed gratification is modelled every day. I've been amazed how carefully the children will move around their grandfriends in wheelchairs or using walkers when they have such difficulty not bumping into each other in the playground. Working with all the teams at the care home and the nursery, we work with the therapies department, the OTs, the occupational therapists and the physios, targeting our activities to the needs of the children and the residents, respecting the contributions of everyone in our partnership. So we work with the caterers, with the carers, with the families, with the gardeners, everybody. Everyone has ownerships and feel that they belong. We have become part of the community. Nightingale House opened in 1906. And until we opened our intergenerational nursery on site, many of the local community didn't know what it was, didn't know there was a cafe they could use, didn't know it was a care home. I asked a child who she was inviting to her 4th birthday party, and she said she was inviting Jerry. Now, Jerry's 91 years old. We have a stimulating learning environment. The structure of using the Jewish year creates flow and a sense of continuity. Festivals are connected and the world makes sense. We experience awe and wonder every day in nature and in daily engagements. Our learning opportunities are much richer and more varied. We prioritize emotional and mental well-being. The children experience aging as a natural phenomenon. It's part of the cycle of life and death, and it's not hidden or frightening. They understand their responsibilities and their connections to the past and to the future in a safe and secure space. Schools that our children have progressed to have commented that the children from our intergenerational setting are often more ready for learning than other children. They are curious and motivated. They have good concentration spans and a strong sense of responsibility for others and for the world. They are resilient and can self-regulate. We're not for profit. 20% of our places are reserved for the children of the care staff, highly subsidised. And I know I have to hurry because I'm beginning to run out of time. So I will speed on. So you can see the quote, but let's have some examples so you can see what it's really like. Here, this is our celebrating Shabbat. Every week, we welcome the week. We welcome to the Sabbath, which is our Shabbat. And we talk about the cycle of the festivals. Well, this is something that happens every single week, but we also say goodbye to Shabbat because you can't welcome something every week and then not say goodbye to it before you welcome it again. The lady standing near the children had never had children. And you can see the joy as she sits with a child from the care staff and the carer who doesn't have extended family locally. Let's move on to the next picture, where you can see them working together and they're constructing using multimedia. The gentleman at the bottom, he was in construction and is very good at advising. The next picture I think tells more than most, which is the picture of them actually gathering the the lavender that is then in the middle picture being put by the little girl into little sensory spice bags and then handed. Every week we smell the spice, the scent of Shabbat as we say goodbye to it at the special celebration to keep the extra soul of Shabbat, that soul of rest, with us throughout the week. And the final picture, I think, just speaks for itself. I mean, I don't think you need me to say anything about it. And I will stop quickly so that Feng can give us our conclusion.
Yeah, actually, we are both to bring together the sort of reflective conclusion about what you do in your setting and what we do together for the Froebel Trust funded project. So for me, I think, what the Apple and Honey did really very much reflected what we discussed in relation to the Froebelian principles, especially in relation to unity, connectedness, and community, and also the way you nurturing children's spirituality and also nurturing the adults in a way, the spiritual world for them, they're together. So the intergenerational care and engagement really, really very much put Froebelian principle in action. Yeah. So and also we would like to conclude here. Use best quote in here what the spiritual education entails. yeah, you can read the quote, but I really, feel this is essence of spiritual education for all of us to think about, because spirituality is a difficult area and domain for early childhood practitioners and educators to, sort of developing thinking even, and also to implement the spirituality as a very important area of learning, which earlier foundation states in England not addressed at all from my point of view. Okay, and then that's the reference. So thank you very much for being with us together. I'm going to stop there.
Thank you so much. That was really fantastic. And there are loads of comments in the chat as well, commenting on what an interesting presentation it was. And people love the term grandfriends. I think that was great. So I'll invite all presenters now to please turn on their cameras. Lovely. So I'll just, read out some of the questions that are in the Q&A function. And maybe if you want to answer, just put up the raise hand, click on the raise hand button just so I can navigate easier. So the first few questions were for the first presentation. So the first question is from Debbie Sheldon. She writes, I'm wondering how you selected participants, or was it a universal offer? I'm also wondering how many at a time.
Yeah, thank you. So we did talk about that quite a bit, and we decided in the end to make it a universal offer. And we thought, well, we'll sort of see how many applicants we get. But as part of that making a universal offer, we also did have, because what we do find is that whenever we're running anything for parents, if we have that one-to-one connection with a parent and we actually have a conversation as opposed to just putting out an invite, we do tend to get much more engagement. So we did actually speak to some of our families on a one-to-one basis, just to say, have you seen that we're looking for some families, and would you be interested in this? Is what. So we gave them a little bit more information to some of the families that we really wanted to engage.
And we put a cap of maybe 5 families together, but sometimes we had more and sometimes we had less. And the sessions originally ran, was it 5 sessions?
6 sessions, I think it was, for about an hour and a half.
But what we have found for our parents is that committing to 6 weeks, even though it was only an hour each week, was too much. So maybe next time we'd make it maybe 3 sessions.
But longer maybe, because we felt that they could, once they were there, they would really engaged. And so we could probably extend it to 2 hours, but maybe have less over a number, less number of weeks, because we found that they found it hard to commit. They were having other things that they were going on. So they were missing out on some of them, which was a bit of a shame. But yeah, essentially it was open to all.
Thank you. That's great. I think I'll move to some questions for Sarah and Nadia. So there was a question about the gardening area. So was the gardening area supervised on Saturdays? Was it just left for parents to freely visit? And someone else asked a similar question. With the garden being open on the weekend, did you have issues with misuse or vandalism? Was it open at set times? Did staff attend during the periods it was open?
Yeah, I probably should have been more specific. It had to be set times, and it was it's once or twice a month. I give my time free. I come, and we have some support from our children's centres as well. We couldn't leave it unsupervised. It would definitely get vandalized, and also we need to be there interacting with the parents as well, and modelling. But it's actually, even though getting up and doing that on Saturday can be a challenge, I always enjoy it. I have to say, I always enjoy it. And
some with me,
yeah.
And sometimes we take them to local area with green, so forest or parks around here as well, so we don't use the nursery at all. So we meet outside or we meet somewhere and then we go from there. Yeah.
Thank you very much. There's a question for Judith and Pengling. Someone, Alexandra Lo, would like to ask about the resources or sources of information that schools use to plan their activities. And actually, I think this is maybe for all presenters rather than just for the last presentation. Would anyone like to comment on that? Yes, Judith, please.
I'm the right person to ask. That Lorraine George has written a very good book on activities if you want to actually look at bringing generations together. I'm trying to remember the name of the book, but her name is, I will actually put the name of the book into the chat for you. But mainly what I've done has been very much based around ideas and themes that have come through our Jewish year. They might be on just a topic that comes across which talks about teamwork or about relationships, or something that might be more practical, and ensuring that everything that we do will be mutually of value, that never is one of our partners going to be a tool for the other. And I'm sure other people have more things to say.
Thank you, Judith. Helen, go ahead.
What we found was what we really wanted to do was enable our staff to embed the training that we'd done with Stella and Felicity. So we planned quite a lot of our sessions around some of the training that we'd had. So most of our ideas and thoughts came around as a result of that training and subsequent discussion across the two nurseries.
Yeah, so we really wanted to focus something around block play. We really wanted to do something around play. We also wanted to bring in the outdoors, and it reflected what we'd done through our training with Felicity and Stella.
And it was a good way of embedding that knowledge in a much more practical sense. So it kind of helped us as a team as well.
Thank you. Fengling, please go ahead.
Okay, I just saw a message through the chat, ask about how much theme, in there. And I think it's a great thing for Judy's nursery setting. The theme, wow, to me, is a wonderful, wonderful glue, to sort of integrate the intergenerational engagement with children and the elderly people. So Judith, would you like to say something here?
Sorry, say that again, because I was so busy writing the name of the book.
Oh, the music. Yeah, the music.
Music.
Yeah,
music actually is central to what we do. When people are elderly, they become more cognitively impaired. As the memory goes, the thing that comes back most is their senses. It's sound, things that stimulate memory, things that they can spontaneously, many of our, the average age of entry of the care home is 92 years old. It's not residential. Very little is residential, it's mainly care. It's a centre of excellence for dementia care and end-of-life care. And we have some of our grand friends who are not really responding and moving. You start a song and suddenly their mouths will move, their eyes will open. We've had relatives come and say, I didn't know what to do. She didn't open her eyes for 2 weeks. And then she heard us, she heard the children, she heard the laughter, she heard the songs, and suddenly there's a response. I mean, that's more extreme, but even generally, also, I mean, we use these. So one of our French speakers who's lost her sight is teaching the children her French songs, and she's now a new purpose in life. She's become a teacher for the children, and the children are benefiting massively. They love it, I think that without music, I don't know how I would be able to actually deliver this program.
Thank you, Judith. Sarah, please.
Just to say, I think that there was the question about resources, wasn't it? So we again used the Froebel training we'd had. That was really useful. But and the forest school training. Yes. So those kind of trainings were really useful. Most of our resources are low cost. we can put a slide back in the presentation. We took one out that had something about resources, so we can put it back in. Because of time, we took it out. But the most important thing is the adults and the interaction and the modelling.
Thank you very much. There's another question for Judith and Fengling. It's about how do you address death with children, as this will be something that happens with an elderly age group.
So this is always the question we're asked, and you may not like my answer, but this is the way I find. I have not had an issue with it. The issue has always been from the families of the, or not even the families, but from adults coming, because we impose our anxiety and our fear of death, because we live in a culture where you don't talk about it. And I mean, I'm looking forward to somebody doing a longitudinal study on the mental health issues of teenagers who have been at an intergenerational setting, as opposed to those that have not been at an intergenerational setting. Because our children are experiencing the cycle of life in reality. They're watching aging. They're seeing people whose eyes don't work so well, whose ears don't work so well, who are less mobile, who can't do what they used to be able to do. And it's all very natural. And then what usually happens is that somebody starts to stop coming to things. They're not well, they aren't in the room. And the children are the center of their own lives. And they have other people to talk to. They might ask about something, they'll ask and we'll tell them, they're not very well today, they're not feeling so well. Things around about that person are wearing out. But it's very much a part of this is life, this is death. We are part of the chain of connection, but also the chain of life. We are part of the past and the present and the future, and it just is reality. And I haven't actually, in the 5.5 years that we have been open, we have never had an issue other than that coming from adults who will sometimes, we've had one case where we had some outside educators come in and actually try to impose their fear onto the children, which actually it shouldn't be happening. I hope that answers your question.
I think it does. Thank you. So there's a question for Helen and Emma. Did you feel it was important to do the Froebelian short courses alongside this project? And what was the impact of the training on your confidence and implementation and reflection on this parent project?
Definitely. It was really, the training has been great. We've done 5 days now, 6 days?
I think we've done three
together as
units,
a team.
yeah.
So we've had Stella and Felicity, who we just love so much, and they've come down to both our nurseries and trained both our teams together. So we've used our training days throughout the year to really embed Froebelian principles in the nursery practice, and this has helped with this project, because it's given staff confidence, and it's given all staff confidence, even if they're not been delivering the sessions with parents. So if they're a key worker with a parent who's on the course, they can also talk to them about why that's important, and the connection with nature and the supporting children through play. It's really embedded practice for us, because a lot of our practice before we did the course we felt was there. It is Froebelian, but having that validation supported staff, I think.
And really the knowledge and understanding, that underpins our practice as well. And I think, so often you send people, or you go on courses and you learn lots of really good things, and you think, that's great, I can come back and use some of that. And often you do. But this, for us, enabled us to kind of do that alongside our training, which was brilliant. So it means that the training has probably had a greater impact than it would have done without us doing the project.
But we're still on the journey. We're not
absolutely.
there yet.
Still learning, as always, all the time.
An ongoing journey of learning. There is, I think we have time for maybe a couple more questions. So there's a question for Sarah and Nadia. So Becky says, coming from a predominantly government-funded nursery in a geographically deprived area, our budget is extremely small. I'm very good at doing things on a shoestring. I was wondering, do you charge for the family days and for the resources that you provide to the families?
No, we couldn't. The families that we specifically invited, particularly for the forest school activity, have no money. We have to support them in other ways as well. We couldn't charge them. They basically wouldn't come. We're a government funded nursery as well. We're the same. So we were able to do the project because of the Froebel grant. So that's the reason that we were able to offer it to the families and do the project. And so, yeah, it's worth looking for grants. I'm always looking for grants. I'm looking for more now to carry on, and just trying to find money where I can, because it's so vital, so important, that this work. But good luck. It's lottery grants are available as well. They're another grant that you can apply for to work with your communities. So that's something schools can apply for if you were thinking about that. And yeah. Yeah.
I think there's another question from Jean that says, in all of these projects, were any of the parents apprehensive about the freedom with guidance concept? Did they think the role of the adult was to teach rather than letting the children make their own discoveries? So I suppose this is up for discussion among all.
Shall we come in on that one just initially? It was, yes, they were all apprehensive, weren't they?
Yes, they were.
Yeah.
But we managed, when we were there, to show that the value of following the children's lead, and modeling was a big thing for them as well. So when we came first, you know, they were always restricting them, holding their hands, do this, or whatever. So it was not really easy to model at first, but slowly by showing them what to do and resources, using tools as well, that was a big thing as well, or having the campfire. They were really worried about
also having languages in common.
Languages as well, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, they did well at the end, because they were stepping back a little bit, following the children's lead, and then understanding what's our effort and how to follow children's interests. Yeah. And
as our Cornwall colleagues said, that, you know, we already had relationships with these parents, yes. So we were building on that and trying to deepen that, and that's the only way we could get them to trust us really enough to do it.
Thank you. Helen, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think there were two things really. One is we had a slightly different experience, I suppose. So some of our parents were anxious and nervous about the freedom with guidance, but we also had quite a few sort of light bulb moments really, where the parents would be encouraged. We would, you know, that was a big part of what we were trying to encourage them to understand, that freedom with guidance. As it underpins so much of that ethos. So, and we had, some light bulb moments where parents were sort of stood back because they were encouraged to, and then the comments they were making were, oh my goodness, I didn't realise, how much they can do for themselves, or how much they can find out and explore without me taking over. So we found that was a really, really good learning process for the children, wasn't it?
And we found as well that sometimes we'd have planned for an activity like making potions and mixing up, lavender and rosemary, but actually some children wouldn't want to do that. They'd want to go off and investigate picking up sticks, or they'd want to investigate, some mud they'd found, or they'd want to go and find some apples that had fallen off the trees. So it was also about reassuring parents that it's okay for them, and there's still lots of learning, and just discussions and talking to your child around that, or observing and following their lead, is just as important as having that idea in your head of this is why we're going to the woods, or this is why we're going to go and look at nature.
Thank you. Thanks very much. If no one wants to add anything else, I think we'll have to come to a close for this session. Thank you, everyone. It was really so interesting. It was lovely to hear from all of you. And I'm sure everyone who attended feels the same.